Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
In 1933, Fred Bear created a legacy, pursuing his lifelong passion. Fred's mission was to ensure archery remains accessible to everyone. Here at Bear Archery, we promise to never forget the principles our brands were founded on. From the youngest archer to the oldest, we strive to build bows that give you the best shooting experience. Visit beararchery.com to discover more.
Knives, machetes, saws, and shears, multi-tools, shovels, swords, axes, spears, hatchets, and tomahawks. If it cuts, snips, slices, or chops, Midway USA has it. Find great gift ideas in our huge selection of pocket knives and other everyday carry folding knives. Make a statement or create a family legacy with one of our top-of-the-line hunting knives. We've got a great selection of manual and electric sharpeners too. For just about everything for the outdoors, check out midwayusa.com.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. And while you're over there, check out the new Vertec, and you may see some familiar faces, especially if you were at the Patreon hunt. You may see more than one face that you recognize. Really cool pattern. Going to work for just about every scenario out there, especially some of that drier climate, that brown grass, lots of browns, grays. Really cool pattern. Really happy to have been able to see it earlier in the process than maybe some others. So super cool. And Latitude also has put out their new Maverick saddle. So if you've followed the podcast, if you know me, you know I'm a simplistic guy. Like, I like things just super simple, bulletproof, and that's why I like a single panel saddle. And the Maverick I got to sit in at ATA, and I've got one on the way. I think it's going to be here tomorrow. So I got to hang around in it a little bit at ATA, but I'm really looking forward to putting it through its paces. It's got 4-inch webbing at the top and the bottom to stabilize it, and you can fold it in half to walk in. So it's kind of like that minimalist 2-panel walking in, but without all the extra stuff going on to move around. Super comfortable, very, very light, 300-pound rating, removable leg straps, metal free, just like everything else. And as far as saddles go, I mean, everything's expensive. You have to buy, whether it's tree stands or any of the gear that we're talking about, but you still gotta buy the ropes, all that stuff. But for the saddle itself at $199, I mean, we're getting back into that category. Why I fell in love with the original classic, because the price point was just there. And when we were at ATA, they were talking about the classic saddle, or the Maverick saddle, being like the quote-unquote price point saddle, and the Lone Star being like the Cadillac single panel saddle. Well, for me, I hate that price point saddle because it's a great saddle, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So it's not just like one of those quote-unquote budget friendly, get you into the saddle type thing. It's a serious, legit saddle, and I'm excited, and I'll definitely follow up once I get mine and to get some time in it. But from what I've seen of it and sat in it and all of those things, I'm really looking forward to it. So check that out over at Latitude online. I'm not sure, latitudeoutdoors.com. Also, another feature from Spartan Forge, they've got the Eagle Eye. So on the desktop, you can actually toggle through different views just by rotating the circle on the map. So definitely, if you got Spartan Forge, check that out. Spartan Forge, you can save 25% by using code Bowhunter. You can save, 15% at Latitude using code BHC. But, as always, just support our sponsors. We can't do this without them. We can't do this without their Patreons. Like Genesis 3D, they've got a code just for Patreons. So if you're a Patreon and you're looking to get some stuff from Genesis 3D, like rumor has it they got a new camera arm coming out, and their new fluid head is super cool. So definitely check them out. Our friends at Kanadi, Zinger, all those guys, definitely check them out. Big Shot Targets, you can save 10% by using code BCP over there. But lots of cool stuff. This is a time where we're really getting excited about it. And this podcast is one of those ones where we're getting ready for an out-of-state hunt, talking water access. We got to talking about boats and trying to figure out like what we're going to use. And this company came up and reached out to them and talked to Jeff. Jeff's a great guy, former Marine, so he's a veteran, just an awesome dude, awesome company out of Indiana, and really excited to talk about this topic because it's something that I haven't dove into, but for you guys who've been kind of thinking about water access, stuff like that, definitely check out these water feather boats. So as always, thanks for listening. I know you guys are going to enjoy this one, but get out there, shoot more arrows. All right, everybody, Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, and I'm here. I got Eric Nelson. I know you guys have listened to the show enough to know that he's kind of like my out-of-state hunting buddy, but he's the water access guy. If I'm hunting on the water, it's definitely going to be with Eric, and that's going to be the theme of today's podcast. We are talking today with Jeff Klump from Water Feather. We're going to talk some boats, some access, and some deer hunting from a boat, I guess. I was going to say a kayak, but it's not a kayak. It's not it's not like a traditional boat. So we'll kind of get into that. But how you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys welcoming me on your podcast.
Yeah. So I don't know, I guess, I've seen it over the last 3 months or so. Like people are kind of like outlining what's the trends over the last few years through like mobile hunting. So it's been, hang and hunt, and then saddle hunting from the ground, going out west, and water access. And, we kind of joke around about it because we're very like DIY, tongue in cheek over here. I'm the world's worst bow hunter. It's just easier that way. But we say like, mobile hunters are like CrossFitters, right? Like they're going to tell you about their saddle and their boat and like all the things that they do. Like that, these are all the buzzwords. And so water access has kind of been that way. But I got my buddy Eric here, he's went like, let's talk just a little bit about like how you got into hunting, deer from like water.
Yeah. So I was, I've always hunted public, with my dad. And I just wanted something different and more opportunity. And this was closer to home. So one day I was like, I'm just going to buy a canoe. So I bought a canoe off Marketplace for like $75 and a trolling motor and a deep cycle battery, and just went to it, started scouting and hunting. And I was telling Adam earlier, but when I first started, I didn't know how well I could get upriver with the canoe and the trolling motor. So I actually would go upriver first. Then I know I could at least get back to the ramp because our current is pretty strong here. So that's how I started and progressed from there. I did shoot a nice buck that first year with the canoe, and it was kind of sketchy. I mean, it got me where I needed to go, but like the buck I did shoot, it was me and a buddy and my two boys and that deer in that canoe. And that thing was like just barely above the water line. And it was like really sketchy getting out. So I thought that was probably not like a great idea. And then I ended up getting a flat bottom, boat. And that was way more, user friendly for hauling deer and gear and buddies and everything. So.
Yeah. And so for me, that sounds like absolutely terrifying. Right. And, we live right on the Muskegon River Basin, I guess. And I've probably done over 100 floats on the river in some capacity in a kayak or a canoe or something like that. And so when all these guys are doing it hunting, and we've talked to guys that are doing it in the dark and doing all this navigating and going way back in, and you got to go far, all this stuff. It seems, like I said, a very like arduous task to like be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in like a traditional, 8 foot, 10 foot, $100 kayak. It seems terrifying. So Jeff, for you, like what has been your experience? And I want to talk about the boats from someone who getting into it like Eric or like myself. If I'm going to get my first boat or any of that, like for you, because we had talked before, you had talked about kind of that same thing, like wanting something better, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Southwest Indiana, so it's a lot big coal mine country down through here. So I was using a kayak to get into some secluded spots, just getting deep in there, and I was using a kayak, and then I just realized I was running out of space, and I was having a rope kind of like tie all my gear down on top of my kayak. And typically kayaks are not as sturdy because they're just not as wide. So I was looking for something that could be more stable, because I do have kids. Like when you're deer hunting, usually in the dark at least one time going in or coming out, right? So I just need more space on whatever boat kayak I was using, and something that's more stable and safe. So that's kind of how I got into the water feather boats.
But from like the beginning, like when did you start hunting like from a kayak or using like the water axis? Like in the beginning, is that something that your dad did? I see my father-in-law, like all these old pictures of guys hunting from canoes or whatever, but like where did it begin for you?
Never really did any access by water until about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's when I was actually just using a boat to go shed hunting, I first using a John boat and then kayaking back in like secluded spots, just trying to find some sheds where nobody else really going to. That's really how I started doing water access. I found some giant sheds. I'm like, hey, I'm just going to throw some cameras back in here. And then before I know it, I was kayaking back and forth, deer hunting in these mobile spots, secluded areas.
So we've kind of covered a couple of different things. You said John boat, kayaks, Eric's used a canoe. Like when you're choosing a boat for hunting, and either of you guys can chime in on this, like what are the factors? I guess I'll give it to Eric first, like that are like the pros and cons of like each, because it seems to me if you're not good at backing up a trailer, your boat, if you don't have access to one, you have to have a boat ramp, like all these different things for that. And then, I mean, Eric and I have been in some pretty sketchy canoes, in a few different states now. So like pros and cons.
Yeah, they all have their ups and downs. Kayaks, I bought a kayak and I used it. I tried to use it once. And I actually had my rifle with me, and I ended up turning around because I wasn't comfortable, because it just felt so tippy with all my gear and my rifle and all that. And then, so I haven't used that to hunt. I have actually used that to scout, because I wasn't worried about losing my bow or any of my gear or anything. The kayak is nice because it's light. Throw it in the back of the truck. You can put it in anywhere. You don't need a ramp. But it's not very stable. The canoe, kind of the same way. It's a little bit tougher to get in and out because it's so much bigger. And then like mine, I had a trolling motor, so I had to, pull the trolling motor off, put that in the truck. The battery is a lot more work. It's harder to haul around. It hangs out the truck a mile. And then the boat, yeah, the boat's easier because if you have a ramp, it's way more stable. It's a lot safer, honestly. I mean, and The disadvantage of the boat is you can't get back into a lot of up the smaller creeks and stuff. So it can get you close where you're going to spend more time, with your boots on the ground instead of in the water, which, it's nice to get right where you want to go in the water because you're not making any ground scent or noise or anything really, especially if you're just using a trolling motor or a paddle, where the boat, you gotta hoof it in still basically.
Yeah. And then, so Jeff, what would you add to that? Cause I think that's where you come in, so the way that this whole podcast came about and everything is, so one of the guys that you work with, Walt and Parker from, SoCo Hunt, I guess it is. It'll always be chasing tails to me. Like, that's just, I've known him for so long. And I've never met the guy in person. So I've known him for 7 years, I think. And my wife's like, he doesn't even exist. He's not real. He doesn't go to any of these things. He's just one of these internet guys, right? And he invited me to go hunt. And we were talking water access, and we've been talking for a couple months now. And then he said, "Oh yeah, I'm using this boat or that boat." And I said, "Why aren't you with the water feather guys?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you haven't seen those? Like, you need to check them out." So, and I got a hold of Jeff, and here we are now. And for me, looking at it, I think it's like almost ends up being like the best of both worlds because of the width, because of the depth, everything, the weight. So how did you land on this? I mean, what was the process of creating this boat from your deciding that a kayak wasn't for you?
What's the most valuable thing in the world? Being able to fish with your family and friends. Exactly. And what's the second most valuable thing? Time. Managing and worrying about body odor used to take up a lot of my time. I was paranoid about smelling, especially around midday. It was all extremely time consuming. But not anymore. Since I switched to Mando whole body deodorant, I've freed up so much time. I've been able to teach my son and his friends how to fish, and I've even mastered some new fly fishing techniques. Yeah, it's that effective and long-lasting. Here's why. Mando doesn't cover up odor after the fact with heavy fragrances like certain other deodorants. It stops odor at the source by blocking the bacteria on your skin from eating your sweat, which is the actual cause of BO. What does this mean? It means Mando is clinically proven to control odor for up to 72 hours. That's a long time. So give yourself the precious gift of time and get yourself some Mando whole body deodorant. New customers get $5 off Mando's best-selling starter pack with code WAYPOINT at shopmando.com. What I like most about Mando is that it's American-made. Mando whole body deodorant is powerful enough for the toughest body odor, but gentle enough to use everywhere without any worry because Mando is aluminum-free and baking soda-free. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code WAYPOINT at shopmando.com. shopmando.com.
This episode is brought to you by our good friends at NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. I'm sure by now you've all gotten back into your Sunday routines, but they could be even better. With NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place, every game, every Sunday. And you can even watch up to 4 different games at once with multi-view, one of my favorite inventions of this decade. It's exactly what you need to catch all the action. Make your Sundays more magical. And also, YouTube TV is great. I got it this year. It's awesome. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games. Excludes digital-only games.
Yeah, so it was about 4 years ago, like I said earlier, that I was using a kayak getting some of these secluded spots. And then at that time, I had a newborn in my house. I was hunting with a headlamp, and with all my gear. And just that transition from like your kayak, boat, whatever you're using to land is kind of sketchy, and you don't know what the drop off. And I was like, I'm passionate with hunting, but it's not worth getting hurt out here or falling in the water with all my gear, So I was like, I got to do something different. So that's how I was looking at some of these duck hunting boats, and there was a company down in Arkansas. I called the gentleman, try to be a customer, and he's wanting to get out of the business. That's how I got into it. I was like, hey, I'll just go ahead and just buy the mold and stuff. And I just knew I needed. I'm not a really big waterfowl hunter, but I just knew like that was what I was really kind of needing because it's more room, more stable. That's how I got into the water feather. And then after 2 years of designing and sitting down with engineers and finally I wanted to release the best mobile boat for not just waterfowl, but for guys like us, like doing water access, because that's how I usually use the boat. So because I waterfowl hunt a little bit, but not like I do deer hunting. Deer hunting, I'm just very passionate with it, and so I use it all the time for water access.
And so what are the features that set this one apart? Like I can say, oh yeah, it looks great, or any of this stuff. But as far as like the pros and cons that Eric kind of laid out there from all the different other kinds of boats, where does the water feather, like what attributes does it have that makes it, kind of the best of all worlds?
Okay, sure. Yeah. It's a frequent asked question. So it's right at 9 foot long, just a little shy of 4 foot wide. So it being about 4 foot wide, that's the where it really shines is the stability of it. So it's very stable. You can climb in. If you're in chest deep water, you can climb into the boat from its side and without it rolling over on you. So if you're standing up in the boat, you're gonna fall out of the boat before it flips over on you. So how stable the boat is, and also it's only 58 pounds. So again, 58 pounds. So you got to think about all your gear, like your saddle hunting. I hunt from a Novix, so with my bow, camera gear, my Novix, you throw all that in a boat. That weight adds up quick, and you got to drag it to the hole. So just try to release the best boat out there for any type of hunting, and also not just hunting, recreational, so people can enjoy the outdoors, right? So that's where the shining points are: the weight and also how stable it is.
And now from like that standpoint, one of the things that Eric kind of touched on a little bit, you hadn't mentioned it, but we see it a lot with guys around here for sure, because whether they're going way deep or like I know my brother-in-law built his to shoot fish out of a canoe, so he was bow fishing out of a canoe, but like to mount a motor of some sort. So you got flatback kayak, I guess some of the kayaks have them, some of the higher end kayaks, but the canoes, or you got to build some sort of weird bracket, and then it's, as Eric will tell you, it's not nearly as stable as
no
if you have a flat back. So are you able to mount like a motor on these, and like how does that work like logistically?
Yeah, sure. So the boat went through a 3-day testing period with the U.S. Coast Guard, and per the Coast Guard, you can mount a 2 horsepower motor on the transom, which is the very rear of the boat. We love seeing what our customers are doing because everybody's trying to push the limit. So to this date, we have not seen anyone, bend the transom, but some of these people are really.
Are you overwhelmed by the hundreds of food plot mixes out there? Well, you are not alone. And Vitalize Seed has developed a program that takes the guesswork out of food plotting. Vitalize makes it simple with their 2 core mixes, Nitro Boost and Carbon Load. Nitro Boost is their spring-summer food plot mix, and Carbon Load is for planting in the fall, each having a diverse mix of over a dozen seed types that are highly attractive to whitetail. Food plotting made simple. Each mix provides necessary nutrients to the soil, making for better plots each season. This also saves you money by needing less Roundup and fertilizer every year. The 1-2 system simplifies your food plots just how nature intended. And for the more advanced habitat managers, Vitalize also offers a variety of natural amendments with products like their seed feed that offer seeds immediately available minerals ready as soon as they germinate. Make biology work for you. Order now at vitalizeseed.com.
Beefing up the transom by more supporting brackets on there and putting bigger motors on it. We don't recommend it, but it is fun seeing what people are doing out there.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So what's the rules down in Indiana for? And that's one of the things too, I think that we should cover. Cause like I said, I want this to be for someone who's like looking for like for myself, like I'm considering it. I've gone back and forth. I've hunted a bunch with Eric, but like, I'm not ready to jump in, because it's like, I don't know, those kayaks look kind of sketchy. I've been in the canoe. It's not my favorite. I have a flat bottom boat, but it's not really for me. So, and then it's like, what are the rules? Like, do I gotta register this thing? Like, how does it, do I need MC numbers? All of that stuff. I know it's going to be check your local regulations or whatever, but what's it like in Indiana where you're at?
But what we typically tell our customers, if you're going to put the boat on any public waterways, take a little sheet of paper we have, which is where you can take your boat to wherever and get it registered. So each boat does come with a HIN, just like a vehicle has a VIN, a whole identification number, and you register your boat so you're legal. So that's what we do here in Indiana.
And so if guys are looking at these, like when I sent them to Eric and, I had seen them, it seems like there's a lot of information out there and a lot of guys, especially on YouTube, that are using them strictly for waterfowl. Like, where does it shine for the deer hunter? Because I think that there's not as much information out there, and that's kind of like where, obviously I'm the world's worst bow hunter. I'm definitely not shooting ducks with a bow, right? So, so we're looking at this from like a deer hunting access thing. Like, where do they shine compared to like any of these other options?
Yeah, that's a good point. So, if anybody that goes to our website, it is really targeted towards waterfowl, but we're about to spin that around. We're about to show more recreational, different color boats, and also deer hunting, because again, I use it quite frequent for water access. So more and more users are using it for deer hunting water access. So we're about to change our website up a little bit.
But is it just like the stability? Like when you shoot a deer, you're going in, like, how are you setting up? Where are you carrying all your gear? Like what's the typical, your typical loadout, and then like the configuration on the boat?
Yeah. One good thing about the boat, we have a rear platform, like they call it a dog platform, but for like somebody like myself, I have like a lot of my gear in the back of there. So when I get to land, I don't have all my gear in front of me. So I can put some stuff behind me. So when I get to land, I can easily step onto land and then start pulling my stuff out. But really how stable the boat is, how lightweight it is, and how much room we call it inside the cockpit, we widen that out so you can take as much gear as you can to the field. Last year I killed a 179-inch buck and boated back out where I was at. And so you can see some videos online of my buck with myself in there just paddling. I mean, to be honest with you, I've only used a trolley motor one time with this boat because how lightweight it is, how easy it is just to paddle. I just paddled to all my spots. But I'm not going like miles and miles deep in there. Usually some of my spots I'm paddling about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes.
Okay. Now, in these, I mean, I guess like the boat, like when you say like, you're bringing this deer out, is it in the boat with you at that point? Are you leaving the guts in and dragging it behind you like we've seen guys do? I mean, what's the preferred method? Because I've never done it. So.
Right. Yeah. So the video I have, online here is that I did field dress it in the field, and then I threw the deer in the boat back out. But yes, it just shows kind of gives a good visual how much room you do have inside the boat with the deer in there. One more quick thing I want to talk about also, that if you think about when you're in a kayak, when you're paddling, most of the time you're a little more elevated, right? So it kind of limits your stability. What I love about this boat too is that you're more like water level too. All depends on how you want to sit in the boat. Lower you are, less your paddle goes up and down, right? So when you're paddling a kayak, you're getting wet. Your hands you're kind of throwing water on yourself. We know when we're deer hunting, it's cold outside. Last thing you want to do is get wet. So this boat, that's another shining point. You will not get wet if you're low profile in the boat. Now, people when they're using this boat for like fishing, recreational, they're more elevated. Then you will get some of that splash on you.
Yeah, and that was going to be one of my questions. Is there anything specific that you have to do to like keep your gear from getting wet or any water coming into the boat? Because that's exactly what I was thinking. And then like for seating in there, because I've seen on the website and some of the videos that you guys have are like these would be for guys who are thinking of it visually, like kind of like a layout boat. That's kind of like the original design or intent, right? So as far as a proper seat to be up and paddling, it doesn't really show that.
That's right. Yeah, we are about to release a seat, or it's going to be after season, like hunting season, so more like January. That's a tough one because different users are using it for different applications, right? So, like myself, I want to be low profile, and most like duck hunters, they want to be low profiled. Deer hunters for the mobile access, they're going to be one lower profile, so you're not getting wet. But like, so we are releasing that first seat in about January, February-ish, and then a second seat is going to be more elevated. But last year, I honestly just used a milk crate, and just that simple, just throw it in there, just something just handy. Anything really works.
But the other side of that is there anything that you're doing to keep your gear from getting wet or your clothing, any of that stuff?
Not really, no, because if you're low profile, you're not going to throw any water in your boat.
Okay. So like the higher you are, the more you go side to side, the higher the paddle is, and you're getting the water that's coming in is just basically from the paddle then?
That's correct. Yeah, the water coming up and down on the paddle as you're more elevated with your paddle.
And so for you, as you've, obviously you decided you bought the mold, you bought the company, you're going to, kind of be, I would imagine a fair amount of your hunting is water access at this point. For you, what has been like the biggest, I don't want to say benefit, but like the change that water access has allowed you as far as like the hunting goes, or success rather?
Yeah. What I love about the water access too is like it gives it more of a feel of an adventure too. So you feel like when you kill something, when you're doing mobile water access, it just has a little more meaning to it. But it just allows me to get in spots where nobody else is really at. I mean, that's how it all came about. Like just trying to get away from people that are the same like-minded, trying to just get off the road and put the boat in the water and get back here deep in wherever.
So in the past 4 years or so, and I guess we could say that this is the problem. Have you encountered more people in those spots, or people using more water access because of the prevalence of it?
I have not, but I'm sure that a lot of other people are, because it's getting more and more popular. People doing water access.
Yeah. What would you say, Eric? As far as, have you seen any sort of shift since you started?
I mean, it's 5-6 years I've been hunting water access, and I would say like it's some years it seems like there's more people, and then some there's less. I don't know. It definitely weeds out a lot of people because it's so much more work involved just to get to a spot where you can walk in, right? Like it probably cuts, half the people out right there.
Is that kind of like what you've seen as well, Jeff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not everybody wants to take the time of loading up a boat, going to where we're going, unload the boat, and then not everybody can swim. Like he nailed it. Like, yeah, it does weed out at least half the people. But there are some crazy people out there too, like ourselves, right?
Yeah, and I just think like, for me, that adventure Like, I guess anytime I go hunting, it's not like, and Eric said he's like, I never even considered the fact that I could drown or anything like that. He's like, oh, it never really crossed my mind. And like, that's what I think of like every time, like every time I would consider like, oh, I want to do this. I want to go ahead and just, all right, I'm going to do it. This year is going to be the year that I do it. And I can find a million reasons not to, right? And Eric was saying, I think there's a different level of drive or a different level of like person. And I'm like, I feel attacked because I feel like I have a lot of drive but I also have common sense. So I'm like trying to balance that out. Right.
I think a lot of it's just getting out of your comfort zone, just like just like going from the ladder stand that you hunt, 90% of your hunts to going mobile to, scouting different spots, going to different spots. I mean, it's just another tool, right? Like I still hunt, from roads too, but it's just a different tool to have to, up your odds, I think.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know, like, whether I'm excited because like where we're going with Walt, it seems like we're going to have to do some water access. So I like being put in a position like where we're forced to. And like, so Eric and I hunted Missouri years ago, but 4 or 5 years ago. And, we canoed in to a spot and we ran into guys that actually walked.
Yeah. Miles.
Very, very long ways to get in there. But we popped up on a hill and we were right in it. Like, and it was a place that you could see from the boat launch. The map, everything laid out perfectly. So I'm excited for that. That I guess you nailed it. That adventure to go and say, okay, we're going to challenge ourselves. And I'm really hoping to get the chance to boat one out this year, but it's just going to push me further into, where we're at here at home because we have a very big waterway with a lot of big deer in it. And it's just not that many people hunt it because they don't want to, right?
Right. It's a lot of work. That's what it comes down to.
So where did you grow up hunting, or what was the style that you had like from the beginning?
Yeah, so I grew up just as far as I remember, like growing up, going with my dad, and I go just sitting in a ladder stand with him, homemade ladder stand. My dad's a carpenter, so he likes building stuff. Like back when I was a kid, I thought it was like the heaviest wooden ladder stand you could ever think of. But yeah, just hanging up ladder stands around like permission pieces, and then my dad bought his own property, and finally I shot my first buck when I was 13. So just growing up, I'm a family of 3 boys. So just we were always outside playing in the dirt or just run around in the woods building forts. So you guys probably recall all that. So I grew up being kind of outdoorsman really, and then hunting my permission pieces from my dad to his property. So pretty well just ladder stands until I started to get out of my comfort zone, kind of like what Eric just mentioned, and got into more of the mobile stuff, and diving into some public, and then just trying to get keen in more of the areas where nobody else is really going. So I just kept driving, seeking more of like, where can I find the giants? So I kind of got out of my comfort zone of the ladder stands to get more mobile.
So in what era was this? Like what time period? What years?
I'm 37 now. So when I started getting more like learning more of like how to hunt right was probably around college years, then after college. But I also went to a span of my time where I didn't really hunt a whole lot because I was in the Marine Corps for a little bit. So, but when I got back out of the Marine Corps, got back home, is where I started diving in more of like just getting more aggressive and getting just like educating myself more, because now like anybody can learn the right way. There's so much information out there now with podcasts, YouTube, you name it. So I'd say the last 8 years is when I really taken it to the next level.
So going from that like 13-year-old kid who killed his first buck or whatever, like at that time, because I know I don't believe Eric ever would say this either. It wasn't really until I started doing the podcast that I learned about like, inches and like, this is how you score deer. It was always like, I grew up like, that's a nice 8-point, or it was a 10-point. Like, it didn't matter. A 10-point was always bigger than an 8-point, and a 12-point was always bigger than 10-point. Like, that was it. Inches were not a thing, maybe a spread or something like that. You'd be like, that's a really wide buck. But for you, was it, cause I feel like everybody who ends up like at the level that we're at with a passion for deer hunting, there's like a switch that turns, and now everything is like, now it's a X amount of year old buck or whatever. Everything has changed. So when did that like change for you? Like, or was that like, did your dad impart that on you growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, every hunter is in a different stage of being a hunter. Like, I remember when I was in high school, I killed 4 years of high school. I killed 3 bucks, so 3 different years, and they're like 120s, 130s. I didn't even officially scored them, but I was so jacked up. I thought they were giants, But there's nothing wrong with that, Like, I actually just saw one of my pictures the other day, reflecting back on it. It was some great memories. But then after I shot so many of those 130s, 140s, I just kept wanting to get more and more and get bigger and bigger. And you're right. All growing up, I didn't know anything about inches or how to score deer. It was pretty well self-taught, or just being around individuals that did score them. Like, now you can just YouTube how to score a buck, and it's right there in your fingertips. But yeah, it's just been a fun ride, of like getting to the point where I'm at now. And I'm not going to say I wasted a lot of time out in the woods, because those are very cherished times, but I definitely spent many years of hunting the wrong way, which that's part of growing as a hunter, right? But Eric, you're over there laughing. You probably did the same way.
Yeah, exact same way. I grew up the same way. I started hunting the same way, and then it was like, like 6 years ago, I think I flipped a switch and just wanted more. And so I didn't hunt for years also. I did. I rifle hunted, but when my oldest boy turned 12, he wanted to hunt, and he actually got me back into it. And then as soon as he got back into it, or got me back into it, it was like, the drive was there. And ever since then, I just wanted to do better. I just wanted better. Like, I got sick of going out and not seeing deer. And hunting growing up with my dad, like, he just, all right, we're going to put your tree stand here, which was made out of 2x4s or exhaust pipe.
Yeah, I was going to say his dad was in the automotive, so they had exhaust pipe stands, not wood.
It started with 2x4s, but we ended with exhaust pipe. But yeah, it didn't really teach me anything. It was just like, all right, we're going to put your stand here. Like, he knew why or whatever the reasoning, seeing deer in the past there or whatever. But as far as my woodsmanship goes for hunting, like when my son wanted to hunt and I got back into it, it was like starting like new really for me. Like, I had to learn everything. And then just the drive to want to know more and do better got me where I am.
Yeah. And for me, like my father-in-law, he still is, he's just a killer, but he has no desire to kill big deer. It doesn't even register. Like, he's killed some decent deer, but he doesn't, I guess he has such a passion for deer hunting and killing deer that he doesn't have like an off switch. So if the deer walks by, he really enjoys shooting deer. So he's just going to shoot everything. And if a big one walks by, he'll miss it. So that's just like, that he's, that's kind of the way that it goes. But I don't know. I just asked the question because like, it's such a strange thing. And like, I feel like, Eric and I are, a little bit older. And so now guys do have access, to like the internet and podcasts and YouTube and stuff like that. And I think that there's a lot of people who are missing out on those fun times of just going out and enjoying shooting deer or like enjoying seeing deer because we are comparing ourselves to everybody else, and I think that that's the thing that we kind of, a lot of like podcasts and social media and YouTube, like we're kind of like becoming a problem of saying like, oh, big deer, big deer, big deer. And I just wondered like, what was your background in that? And so like you said that you've got kids now, like how are you bringing them up in the hunting realm?
Okay. Yes. Real quick, I got a 4-month-old daughter, a 4-year-old daughter, and I have my third daughter. She's about to turn 6. So my wife and I, we built our house, just moved in 4 months ago, right before the baby was born, to our house. And it sits in the very north end of my property where I do all my hunting, my food plots and all that. So it's just, I just love seeing the joy for my girls, like before, the last hour before it gets dark, like there's deer just everywhere. So I like in my dining room, in my living room, I have just spotting scopes and binoculars everywhere. And I get the joy now from my kids of like, hey dad, there's a deer there, so I just very blessed to bring them up into it now. And I have cameras all over, like my property. So like my daughters, they want to start hunting too. Like I usually take them at least once a year because I do have some redneck blinds where it's more like kid friendly, like last thing I want to do is take my kids out there in freezing temperatures and ruin it, So I usually take them once a year, but now they're seeing the deer every day, now they're wanting to go out there and hunt. So it's pretty exciting because I have a few cull bucks I need to take off the property. So I have a pretty good high chances for my daughters to kill this year, which is crazy to think because there'll be 4 and 6, but they're ready to go out there. Now I'll probably rig them up with a tripod, with a crossbow, but if they don't want to do it, they get scared when the time comes, and that's fine. I get it, but just enjoying outdoors with family, really.
Yeah. My daughter's 8. She shot her first deer last year, and 350 Legend on a tripod out of a shack up in the UP, just a 3-point. And she was like, it was a roller coaster. Like was fortunate enough to be able to video the whole thing. But the amount of times that gun went on and off safe of like, I don't know if I can do it. I think I can do it. I want to do it. Do you think I should do it? Like, but
right.
And I'm so glad that I have it on video because she comes back and she says, I didn't know if I wanted to shoot it. And I asked Dad if I should shoot it. And he said, yes. So I shot it. And I'm like, that is not what happened. I'm like, you had that gun on and off safe a dozen times. And I said, do you do whatever you want to? So, but get ready. Cause oh man, it's that, emotion, like not even like from like being like a dad side of it, but like as a kid, that like raw emotion is like something that's like super infectious. So it's like, it was super cool just to see all of her reaction from it. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty sure I'm going to experience that this year. I'm super excited. Just kind of nervous how I'm going to react. I think I'm not too emotional, but I feel like I'm going to get really emotional when my daughter kills her first deer.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think that that's kind of like, a testament to like, I don't know, you've said like, hunting right and hunting wrong or like whatever, but I feel like, just kind of like raising your kids, like in the way that you live your life, that was one of the things for me is like, I knew I was going to have a girl because and you probably have the exact same things being like former Marine, all that same stuff like me is like, I'm like the most masculine person in the world. So I'm like, I know everything I do is like man stuff, So I was like, I'm going to have girls and it's going to be like, dance and ballet and all this stuff. Yeah. And, but she does all that stuff and she just wants to be around, they just want to be like included. And I think like for us as parents and especially as like dads of girls is, to be like, okay, we're doing a good job because they want to be involved in what we're doing. Like, you don't have to push hunting on them. You don't have to do that. But like you said, like just watching deer out the thing, we drive around and glass deer and it's like, maybe she doesn't necessarily want to glass deer, but she wants to come along with me And she's like, can we get snacks? Like, absolutely. So she gets to get snacks. She gets to go look at deer, and, you know, she gets to spend time with her dad, and, you know, same thing. So all that emotion is like doing a good job as a parent, I think, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't know. So what else with, I guess, Eric, what other things do you have about the, like, questions about the boat? So you're the boat guy, right? I mean, he's building a Jet John right now because he's moving on to the next step and
of
water
boat.
access.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm super intrigued by it, because just getting out of a kayak on the bank of the river is like a whole different world. And your boat has to be like just so much more stable for getting in and out on a river bank or anywhere, really, especially when you got, you know, all your gear with you and all that. Like that's probably the number one downfall to the canoe or the kayak, is it's so tippy getting in and out on the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And for you, is there just, so with the boats, is there just one model of the water feather, or where are you guys at with that at this point?
Yes, right now there is just one model, the water feather, but our website, it does say water feathers, because there might be plans of a future boat. So
Okay. All right.
Kayak or something.
Okay. All right.
So real quick, I'm going to back up a little bit. So when I mentioned earlier how I purchased a mold, right? So we were making fiberglass and resin boats, and we couldn't make them fast enough for, like, anytime we marketed them, is like, oh, here comes more orders in. It's not like the whole process of building a fiberglass resin boat is pretty lengthy, and it's gnarly, it's hazardous. We're wearing Tyvek suits, full face respirators, ventilation systems. I'm like, I'm not going to do this the rest of my life. So that's where we got into the water feather, where we rebranded and created a new boat with some designers and engineers. And that was about a 2-year process of really dissecting of what's going to be the best boat for all aspects. So it's the water feather is very well thought out for any type of hunting or recreational use. I just want to throw that out there real quick, because it was resin fiberglass, then now it's roto molded out, made out of polyethylene.
Yeah. And so just one more time, can you go through the specs as far as like the length, weight, and even like the I don't think we talked about like the depth of the boat.
Yes, 1 second. Let me pull this sheet up. We have a brochure that has all like the specs and everything on it, which anybody can visit our website, waterfeathers.com. You can see the specs too. So the boat is 9 foot long, 3 foot 9 inches wide, and 1 foot 1 inch deep for depth. The cockpit is 6'9" and long and 2'3" wide. The draft 2 inches empty, 3 inches loaded, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Again, the weight is 58 pounds.
And what's the rating for, like, as far as like capacity?
The weight capacity is 320 by the Coast Guard. It'll withstand 1,200 pounds before it starts taking some water.
Okay.
Yeah. We were shooting for a much higher weight capacity when we're designing everything. And we were trying to get above the 350 mark, but where it all came down to, it landed at 320 per the Coast Guard.
And where is the distinction there? I mean, what is that? What is that? I mean, I could tell you like what the TSA standards or whatever for like fall restraint, like I could tell you like what the numbers mean there, but for kayaks and stuff like that, what does that 320 number mean?
Yeah, so the boat will withstand much more weight, but by the Coast Guard, they have to have a safety, factor in it too. But just a general calculation, you can take your length and width and like the dimensions of the boat to give you a close weight capacity until it goes to the 3-day testing period. And the 3-day testing period is pretty thorough. They submerged a boat full of water for over a 24-hour period, test the interior of the boat, and so on. It does remind me that the boat does consist of Coast Guard approved foam, is closed cell foam. So if for some reason somebody sinks the boat, I guess it won't sink. It will. If somebody fills the boat full of water, the boat will not sink. It'll actually be like a life-saving device. So, because some of these people, the duck hunters, they hunt divers out in like Atlantic Ocean, Chesapeake Bay, crazy to me. But if for some reason they're in a situation, the boat will not sink. It will roll over or whatever. Then it'll stay out of the water for about 4 to 6 inches, so you can sit there as a life-saving device. So.
Yeah, that whole thing is wild. Like my brother, they've done that a couple times, and we were talking about it when I was telling him about the podcast, and he's like, if my son told me, because he did it when he was like 18, 19 years old. He's like, if my son told me at 18, 19 that he was going to get towed out into the middle of Lake Michigan, like 3 miles out, and then the boat was just going to drive off and just kind of hang out there and just wait for ducks to fly over. He's like, there is no way that I would sign off on that. Like, that is a wild concept for these guys in these, like, the layout boats.
Oh yeah. That's what I love about this is the stories that come in from people going mobile hunting for like turkeys, because we just wrapped up turkey season just recently, now deer season's coming up too. Like people are scouting, people are bow fishing out of these, people are pulling pythons, one of our big supporters is Bruce Mitchell from Swamp People. He loves the boat and he's planning on like getting some footage with him with a python, but people are using this in all crazy different aspects.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that that's a testament to like the product. I can't wait to kind of get my hands on one. I think this is probably what I'm going to land on with a boat, just from, like I said, from all the experiences that I've had, and then looking at them and talking with people. But I think it's a testament to like I don't want to say like the use case, but like the versatility obviously is there, but to be able to be like, to hold up in that many situations, to be able to be used in that many different applications successfully. I think that's a testament to the design right there,
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we have so many videos of people using these boats for like different things, like we have a video we show people quite often, like people, what's the limitations on the boat? And look at these guys in New York and Long Island, there's 3 gentlemen in the boat, with a bigger motor, on it. If we don't recommend it, but if somebody's going to go over the weight capacity, just spread load your weight. You don't put all your weight in the front or the back, like have some of the weight up front, some in the back. But
yeah. So like I said, I'm very excited to check these out. And I think that for someone who's like in a situation like I am, and they're trying to like do their due diligence and their research to say, okay, well, there's these options that maybe are easier to acquire, they're accessible, but they don't, it's always like the buy once, cry once thing. Find the thing that works, that's going to be the easiest, and get the job done in the capacity that you want it to. Like whether that's, I guess a $20,000 John boat with a big motor, and you're going to use it for river fishing. Like, okay, great, but there's limitations there too. But I think this is like, for someone who's trying to figure it out, I think this is a very reasonable product that shouldn't be overlooked for the deer hunter. So I appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us, and I'm glad that Walt was able to put us in touch. For anybody who has questions or they want to check out any of the stuff from Waterfeather, like you said you'd done a lot of shows and things like that. Do you have any shows coming up? And then where can they contact you if they need to?
Yeah, so we just usually show season people think is February. Wish we attend all the shows in February, but then we just wrapped up like another show wave. We attended the Hunters Mobile Expo in Dalton, Georgia. We attended the World Deer Expo down in Birmingham, Alabama. And this past weekend, we were just Baton Rouge, Louisiana for the Delta Waterfowl Expo. And then August 19th, we're going to be at the Buckmasters Expo in Montgomery, Alabama. Then our dealer in Wisconsin, there's a show up there. I can't recall off the top of my head what it's called, but that's one thing we're also doing too. We're partnering more with our dealers, so to help them like push the brand and drive more sales and just help them out too. So if there are any suggestions on where we should attend a show, we like to hear that. We want that feedback, because we want to shake hands, hear the stories, and build the brand as much as we can, because the brand's only a year and a half old. So we're trying to let the people know like what the waterfowl really is, and put their hand on the boat. Because once you put your hands on the boat, you're going to be sold, because it's so lightweight. You can do so much with it. How to contact us? Yes, waterfellers.com. There's a contact in there. You can call or a number, or shoot us an email. You can find us all socials, Facebook, Instagram, you name it.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time on here, Jeff. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. It's been fun.